Billy, there was a pretty scary scene during the Detroit versus Ottawa game over the weekend. Before we get into any of the, the thoughts on the matter, let's just go over the facts first and what we know. Correct me if I make any mistakes in this one, but what we do know is there was a scrum in front of the net.
Yep.
Joseph of the Senators made contact with Larkin's head, which caused him to kind of fall forward. Kelly from Ottawa came in, made more contact with what looks like Larkin's this kind of region, head, jaw, that kind of region.
Yep.
Larkin drops, no movement for, I would say, I didn't try to time or anything, but at least a minute, maybe more. Medical staff comes out. They had the stretcher, but thankfully he did get up under assisted power and was helped off the ice. There was no immediate update after the game, just that he wasn't going to be coming back. Nobody from Bally wanted to speculate, rightfully so. And the latest update that we have is a tweet from Kevin Weeks that we can put on the screen that just says, medical update. I'm told all scans are negative, clear. For Red Wings captain Larkin, no time frame for his return. So everything they've checked for appears to be okay. Like whatever they have checked for so far seems to be fine. And that's the most important part of this whole thing, is that it sounds like whatever it is, if however long he's going to be out, we're still waiting for the details on that. But I'm guessing they checked for the worst. And thankfully, it seems like those are the kind of things that are coming up negative. So overall, Billy and I have our opinions on the whole thing, but we'd love to hear yours. So just before we influence it at all, we would love your raw take on it instead of our potentially influenced take on it. So, feel free, jump down to the comments. Let us know what you thought of the whole thing. Let's create a discussion around it.
So what's come out of this situation so far? Josh already talked about the negative scans for Larkin and no timetable for return is pretty terrible news for Red Wings and Red Wings fans. Perron is getting an in-person hearing with player safety. I'm anticipating it's probably going to be 3 to 5 games of a suspension. It was very aggressive.
Yeah, from what I saw, I mean, it's Twitter and blue check marks don't mean anything anymore, so I don't know who's who anymore. Multiple people were saying that an in-person hearing is likely minimum of 5 games.
Okay.
So that's been the consensus that I've been seeing. So it sounds like your minimum going into this is going to be 5 games for Perron, which, I mean, if we want to give our quick thoughts on that, I think that's where you and I are in total agreement.
Mhm.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we both we both played hockey. We understand the art of sticking up for your teammate, especially your captain. And you know what? I'm not even going to act like I would have done something totally different in the same heated moment.
Yep.
Not trying to say Perron is a bad guy for it, anything like that. But the fact of the matter is, he turned around, he was seeing red, saw Larkin laying the way he was, and saw someone standing over him. And if you watch it again, when Perron turns, who did he? Was it Zub?
Zub.
Zub that was standing over Larkin was also kind of getting in like an upward stance. So it really looked like he was the one who put Larkin down.
Yep.
So in Perron's defense, he thought he was sticking up for his captain. And unfortunately, it was in a way that is going to for sure get him suspended and fined.
Yeah. Also, in defense of Perron, even from our perspective, is the fans, like, it was very difficult to tell what had happened at all. Play had already kind of moved away from that exact spot. And we also just kind of saw, Larkin face down against the ice. And I mean, we've seen other terrible things happen on the ice, and I don't think many people knew what happened right away. So imagine being on the ice. You probably
Mhm.
wouldn't have any better idea of what had happened because of just how those 3 players came together in that moment. So it's really tough to excuse a cross check blatantly to the side of a player. And it also sucks when that player was completely innocent in the entire scenario. So hoping that Zub's okay. I think he kept playing, but obviously you don't like seeing your player do that. As for Joseph and Kelly, there have been no reports on anything happening to them whatsoever. No player safety posts about any fines or anything like that. So Yeah, what we got out of it is hopefully an okay Larkin, a suspended Perron, and nothing done to either Senators player as of yet.
We're gonna kind of jump into what our opinions are just on the play. And one thing that Billy and I didn't really discuss before this is if and what we think there should be anything for Joseph and Kelly. Do you want to answer that now, or do you want to wait until you've given your thoughts?
We can just do that now. I'll let you start though.
For me, I definitely feel like Joseph with the contact to the head at bare minimum. I feel like the precedent has been set that a contact to the head is going to get looked at regardless. I'm a little surprised we haven't at least gotten an update on that. Kelly was the one for me where I couldn't. And this is why when I described it, I said it looked like he kind of made contact with this region. Is from the angles that I saw, I couldn't exactly tell where the contact was made and if it was just a pure, a result of the sum of everything. And I couldn't really tell exactly where Kelly's contact was, but I would still expect the NHL to give some sort of response. I would rather be told that nothing's going to happen to them than just be sitting here wondering.
From my perspective, and this is a little insight or preview of our general thoughts on the entire situation, is I have a bigger problem with Kelly. I wouldn't expect anything to come out on Joseph, but where I think the damage was done in the entire scenario was Kelly's contact with Larkin. I do think that he got him on the side of the head with his head already moving the other way. I know you posted in our Discord that if you have two cars approaching each other at 25 miles an hour, it's a 50-mile-an-hour crash. You have to take the velocity of both objects into consideration. And I think that I would like to see a fine on Kelly. It's going to be really difficult with how the league operates to justify a suspension, but I would expect to see a fine for Kelly.
So for me, and this is where Billy and I have our disagreement. We've already said we fully agree with Perron getting his suspension. He earned it, but we understand. We get it. We get why he did what he did. Sucks that he did it the way he did it. I'm sure if he went up and it was a more of like a punch or even just to the body, we're probably not. But I mean, the cross check straight to the dude's side of his helmet, that's extremely dangerous. And he wasn't even the one who did it to Larkin. So it's not going to be a good look for Perron in that hearing. But when it comes to the rest of the play, and I sent Billy a couple of these screenshots, and I'll blow them up a little bit so that way you guys can at least get my reference point from below. So in the first one you'll see down there is I already see Joseph looking at his target. I believe that I see Joseph looking up at Larkin, at his face, at his head, and I see from that point, there's nothing pushing him into Larkin. There's nothing forcing him to make this future contact with him. And his arms start low. And that's another thing that's important to me is that his arms could have more conveniently, quickly, and probably more effectively and safely moved Larkin from the front of the net, going right into his back. That's the kind of stuff that I remember us learning. That's the kind of stuff you see all the time where you're clearing out the front, you take your stick, and yeah, sometimes you get called for with that cross check, but it's usually you're pushing them in their side or their back, or you're pushing them in some way at their body. Me seeing Joseph bring his hands up and what feels like over the body and making direct contact with the part of his head that it looks like he is looking at, that's where I feel like the first inkling of danger is on the play, is him. What I believe, I'm not going to go so far as to say he intended to injure Larkin. I do not believe he accidentally made contact with the head, though. And I know that kind of sounds like they go against each other, but I think it's more of in the quick moment of maybe there's a little frustration. It's this rivalry is kind of getting heated anyway. There's a history now. I feel like he saw an opportunity to get a jab in on him, and he did, and it was an effective one. And as a result, that caused Larkin's head to come down, and Kelly comes in with only intent to make contact with Larkin. There's clearly there was no puck involvement. There's nothing going on there, which, by the way, I don't believe there's any puck involvement with the Joseph one, but I will group him in that category of overall intent to clear the front of the net. But I also believe he intended to make contact with the head to do that. Kelly just came in to hit Larkin. And when you combine that with the contact to the head, you get a very scary situation. And I believe that if either one of those two did not do what they did, Larkin's not laying on the ice. I believe that if Joseph made contact with the lower body and Kelly came in and bumped the other side of his shoulder, Larkin's getting bumped. We have a scrum in front of the net, and the play continues. Who knows?
So I think you described that pretty well. I think the big thing that you and I disagree on is that I am even more forgiving towards Joseph on the intent to clear the front of the net. I know that he looked at his head. I think he meant to shove him. I think Larkin's kind of going down a little bit in that the hands go up, and there's no doubt they do make contact with the head. But that's something that I feel like I see happen in hockey games pretty often, and this is where my transition of responsibility in this situation changes. And I'm looking at Kelly, who is now going towards the front of the net with his stick out to cross check, only to cross check. Even if it only gets Larkin on the arms or whatever it could have gotten, that's all he's going there to do. He's not intending to play the puck whatsoever. And I have a personal gripe, and maybe it's a little irrational with a lot of people who play hockey or fans of hockey. I despise cross-checking. I think it's completely unwarranted. I don't think there's really a place for it in the game, and they've kind of stepped it up recently. But it always feels like you can link cross-checks to some of the scarier moments that happen in games if they're not just hits from behind per se. But it's when you get the sticks high. It's when you get Perron to get that stick higher. And I think that's where the damage is done to Larkin. I think if Kelly does not get involved in the scenario whatsoever, or if he doesn't come in with a cross check, maybe he just comes up with like two hands closer and you get more of Larkin's shoulder rather than your hands spread out and you get his chin, this situation doesn't end up here. I think if Kelly's not there, we aren't even talking about this. I really feel like it just goes off as just a play in front of the net. And yeah, he pushed, he got a little high on him, and we would probably say we want that to be a penalty. What Joseph did should be a penalty, whether that's intentional or not. I just can't excuse Kelly from the scenario and where the damage all comes in. And that's why when we talked about what we want to see come from player safety is Kelly's involvement. And that's where my anger rests in the scenario. And to talk about the way Perron handled it one more time, I really want to stress that I don't think Josh or I support that whatsoever. You do not go after another player with your stick up towards their head. I just talked about how much I hate cross-checking. What Perron did, in my opinion, personally, I won't speak for Josh, is disgusting and absolutely deserves the punishment that will be coming his way. And I also believe that he probably feels the same way. I bet a lot of people in our organization probably feel the same way on, yeah, you can't really do that. So what should happen is what happened later in the game when Fisher fought him. He fought Joseph. And granted, it wasn't a great fight. It was pretty boring. But this is also why we have someone like Klim Kostin. And the fact that he isn't in the lineup against Ottawa, to, I guess, take ourselves like out of this scenario specifically and talk maybe a little bit more about the game and our coaching staff in it. Josh, why isn't he in that game? You know how
I saw a tweet from
going.
Daniela Bruce, something about Costing being like banged up or unavailable to play because
Okay.
she saw that commentary and she wanted to nip that before it got out of hand. That he, for whatever reason, was not able to play. It sounds like it was not a decision to not have him there.
Okay. Well, then if that's the case, it's probably good to keep him out of it, right? It's probably better for us to run the 7 defensemen and everything, but I know that a lot of our fans are fans of the Red Wings in the 90s. I know that that was a sentiment shared in our Discord quite a bit. Unfortunately, guys, you're not going to get another Darren McCarty scenario. We're not going to get a Lemieux back. We're not going to get a Lemieux hit to the back, break an entire guy's face on the boards, and then have the absolute bloody mess of fight night at the Joe again. That's just not the NHL today. So you have to find the proper ways. Yeah. You got to find the proper ways to start handling in this stuff. And honestly, I wish we would have handled it on the scoreboard. I wish we could have just left that game with 2 points and sent Ottawa on their way at the bottom of the division. But unfortunately, nothing went right for us that.
If you agree with us, let us know. If you disagree, I mean, let us know even more. We're happy to talk about it. You're free to talk about it in the Discord. The link for that's down below. Um, I wish there was a little more to talk about with the recent games, and hopefully these next couple games on Monday and Tuesday go a little bit better. And best wishes to Larkin. Hope he's not going to be out too long. Hope he's doing all right. See you guys.